Hey YouTubers, Voice of the Composer here. Welcome back to my channel. It's Friday afternoon. How's everybody doing out there? We're going to talk about what's going on with Texas, this lawsuit. You know, there's 18 to 20 other states which are piling on the suit, backing Texas. What I really want to focus on, regardless of whether the Supreme Court takes this case or not, if they rule in favor of Texas or not, could this lead to some type of mass secession movement? Now, I'm not calling for secession here. I'm just asking the question, could Texas filing this suit lead to some type of mass secession movement? And this kind of segues into what I want to talk about at the first part of this video, which is this controversy with YouTube. It's been reported in many news outlets and probably on this site here with YouTube that they are starting to pull any video that questions the results of this election. Well, I find this ironic because YouTube and the internet would not be here if it were not for the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, of the press, to debate, to peaceably assemble. So YouTube, you would not be here. The internet would not be here if it were not for the First Amendment. Now, when our country was founded, they did not have the internet. They didn't have all the bells and whistles that we have now, but they did have the printing press. They had newspapers. They were living in a time of monarchs. You didn't say anything bad about the king in those days. You just didn't. So they understood the importance of debate. They knew what disunity was. They saw it. They saw people being hung by their petard in the public square. They didn't want to see mass riots. They didn't want to see mob rule. So that's why they came up with something called the Bill of Rights, so that we can debate, so we could be civil, so that people could go and worship as they please. They could peaceably assemble. And believe it or not, that's actually what we're doing here. When we come to YouTube, we are peaceably assembling, coming together as a community to share ideas, to debate. Now, I'll tell you what I really would like to see. I'd love to see YouTube post a video of YouTube employees who voted for Trump and YouTube employees who voted for Biden. Just imagine YouTube. Imagine all the viewership, the ad revenue. I would pay admission to see that. So YouTube, get cracking. Create a video where you're showing employees that work for your organization who voted for Biden, employees for your organization who voted for Trump. Let's see who comes out on top. That would be awesome. Absolutely awesome. So I don't think that you should be taking down videos of people just asking a simple question of what happened in this election. I think that's a fair question to ask. And we have video evidence. We have video evidence, which brings that question to light, i.e. the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, where you have people on camera pulling out shipping containers or suitcases from under a table after they told everybody else to go home because they were done counting for the night. And here they are pulling out ballots, counting when they told everybody they were done counting. I think there's a question there. So YouTube, your investigators, get on that. Find out what really happened. Put your biases aside. I don't care if you voted for Biden. I don't care if you voted for Trump. I don't care if you voted for the Green Party. If there was something wrong in this election, then damn it, find out what it was. Do your job. Send your YouTube journalists out there to figure this thing out, so that we can all be rest assured that this was done fair and square. That's all we're asking for. That's all we're asking for. Taking down a YouTube video is not going to stop that. Let me pose a question to you, YouTube. If there was no YouTube, and we had the same thing happen, do you think people would not be questioning then? Well, of course they'd be questioning then. Because we have video evidence that shows that people were pulling out ballots from under a table after they told everybody else to go home. And they're starting to count ballots at 11 o'clock at night, or 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And they didn't stop till 1 in the morning. And the only way that poll watchers found out about that, I've talked about this on a previous video, the way they found out about that is because they were coming back at that time, and they ran into somebody from the press who said, yes, they were counting these ballots after 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. So yes, there is a question there. Let's get to the bottom of this. If Trump turns out after everything is said and done to not be the winner, well, fine. We just want answers. That's all we want. What do you think, folks? Do you think it'd be a good idea if YouTube put up a video where they showed how many of their employees voted for Trump versus how many of their employees voted for Biden? Seriously, imagine all their ad revenue, all the viewership that would bring in. Be great, be fantastic. So on to the topic at hand, and that is what's going on with Texas. Could it possibly lead to a mass secession movement if bringing this suit causes all these problems with the election cycle? Because think about it. If they lose in court, okay, they're not going to be happy. If they win, the other side's not going to be happy. If the court tosses us out, nobody's going to be happy. So either way, hate to say it, but we're screwed. But we got to go back in time to 2000, to the Bush versus Gore debate, or that election, because Bush ended up winning by a very narrow margin, 537 votes, and it was a 0.009% margin. Now, Bush had 271 electoral votes, and Gore had contested the election in Florida. Gore had 543,895 more votes. That's a margin of 0.51% of all votes cast. Bush won 11 states that voted Democrat in the 96 election. For those of you who weren't alive then, Al Gore served as vice president under the Clinton administration from 1992 to 2000. I was in Florida when this whole debacle with the 2000 election happened. So you had a month worth of litigation, and the court finally decided that it went to Bush after this recount. Now, Florida state law requires when the election is that close for there to be a recount. And in the end, like I said, Bush came up on top with 537 votes, or 0.009%. So what could happen here if this gets delayed, the inauguration of the president gets delayed here? You could have a situation where we invoke the 20th Amendment and the 25th Amendment. Now, the 25th Amendment has more to do with if a president dies, is somehow incapacitated to carry out his position. We saw this in 1963 with the assassination of JFK. When JFK was assassinated, LBJ was on a plane, and he got word of the assassination, and he was immediately sworn in. He was the vice president at the time. He was immediately sworn in as the new president. So that's when you would invoke the 25th Amendment. Now, the 20th Amendment goes into a little more detail here. 20th Amendment deals with inauguration day. What happens if there's a delay in that inauguration? So I'm just going to go through my notes here, so please bear with me. So originally, before 1933, we had inauguration day set for March 4th. So before 1933, it was March 4th. On January 23rd, 1933, Congress passed a law, or passed this amendment, 20th Amendment, which changed the date of the inauguration to January 20th. And we've been doing it on January 20th ever since. Now, this reduced the presidential transition and lame duck period, and the incoming Congress also is required to hold a contingent election if the Electoral College is deadlocked. So if we get a deadlocked Electoral College, then the new Congress is going to have a contingent election. So a contingent election is the procedure used to elect the president or vice president when no candidate for either office wins an absolute majority with the Electoral College. So a special vote takes place in the House of Representatives, and the 20th Amendment also covers procedures in the event that a president-elect dies, or that they're not qualified for their position, or fails to qualify, if they're not chosen. So there's a rare instance where a president is not chosen, died, failed to qualify. The VP-elect would become the president at that point. Fixed time requirement. Now, if the 2020 election is still contested on Inauguration Day, you can also use the Presidential Secession Act of 1792. So that means that the current vice president would be the president pro tempore of the Senate, president or VP. Now, here's some of the flaws with the Texas lawsuit, which is the real crux of the video, I guess, is that the Second Amendment only says that the state legislature has the power to elect electors, or choose its electors, rather. But it does not specify how exactly elections are to be carried out in any particular state. Texas is going to have to show that they were harmed here. They're going to have to show hard evidence that they were harmed by the actions of Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Now, the other thing that happens, and I think they did this today or yesterday, is you had Pennsylvania countersuit, basically. They filed a complaint with the court. They have the right to, once a state files suit against another state, that other state has the right to respond back, which is what they did. And I believe I read the other day they were suing for harassment or something of that nature. So if you've got a state that's going to file suit against another state, that other state can countersue, file a complaint. Now, this can open up the door, by Texas doing what they're doing, this can open up the door, if the court rules in their favor, where we have one state meddling in the election laws of another state. I don't think we really want to go down that road. Everyone says, well, this is a national election. Well, technically, no. Yes, we're electing the President of the United States, but you also have states' rights. You have things like, the 10th Amendment? Don't have time to go through all the amendments in the Constitution here, but the point is that Texas is going to have to prove that they were harmed by what Pennsylvania did, or Michigan, or Wisconsin, or Georgia. So they need to show the evidence of that. And if they can't, then it's going to be a meritless case, and the court's going to have to throw it out. So the Supreme Court has got to play this balancing act. If they do rule in the favor of Texas, will it result in states starting to meddle in the affairs of the election process of another state? Now, a state does have a right to sue another state if there are clear violations of the U.S. Constitution, i.e., you had one party that was able to vote in one area of a state, but they weren't, or another party wasn't able to vote in another area, or another party was locked out of voting in that particular area of the state. So in that instance, unequal treatment, then yes, Texas could definitely file suit. But they have to show, like I said again, they have to show how they're going to be harmed by this, or show that they have been harmed. So they've got a real uphill battle here. And personally, for me, I'm hoping that in some way it does kind of rule in Texas' favor. Well, actually, I don't want to say that necessarily. I want to say, I hope that the court does what is the most fair, what is the proper thing to do according to the Constitution, where you reach some type of compromise. That's what I'm hoping. Because if there was fraud committed in this election cycle, we need to bring it out in the open, and we need to put the rein on it so that it doesn't happen again. And that's not just benefiting people who voted for Trump in this election cycle. That benefits those of you out there who voted for Biden, or like me, an independent voter who might have voted for a third or fourth party. Now, here's another issue too. A really important issue with this case. Let me go into my notes again here, folks. Minutes. The political system could be fractured by this action from Texas. And this could cause possible secession. So if you have Texas filing this suit, and the court rules in their favor, or let's say they rule in their favor, but they don't get everything they want. Texans don't get everything they want in the suit. Then Texas could still say, hey, we're happy that the court did this, but we're not happy they did that, and we're going to succeed either way. So that could cause a lot of issues in this country. Definitely break up the election cycle, or the electoral system. So, like I said, I personally want to see the court do the right thing. I don't necessarily want them to favor one party or the other. I want them to do what is right according to the Constitution and show whether or not the Constitution in these swing states was violated. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click that like button, subscribe, hit me up on Instagram at hashtag JasonComposes, leave comments below. And you can also reach me at Twitter, Voice of the Composer at Twitter. So coming full circle here, YouTube, please don't take down these videos where people are asking questions about this election. Today's video that I'm doing is case in point. I didn't say, here, go out and vote for Biden, or here, go out and vote for Trump. I didn't question the results of this election. I just asked the question, hey, if we got videos showing this, that, or the other, should we be investigating that? I just presented the argument today in this video. What if the court doesn't rule in Texas' favor? What if they do and Texas isn't happy with it? Like I just said, Texas could simply decide to secede because they're just tired with the whole process. So it's a serious question that needs to be addressed. And this has been floating about in the news, so I thought I'd do a video about it today. But YouTube, I want you to go back and look at any of the videos that I've created. You're going to find that I am not a sexist, a homophobe, I'm not racist. Yes, I own a Confederate flag, but I also own an American flag, and I own a bonnet blue flag. Oh, and by the way, YouTube, go back and check this out for yourself. The symbol on the Confederate battle flag is known as the Saltire, St. Andrew's Cross. For those of you who have watched the videos, you know this quite well. I've talked about it before. But for those of you who work for YouTube, you probably don't, because you just go by the, or you drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak. But that symbol on the Confederate battle flag is the Saltire, St. Andrew's Cross. It's the oldest known flag symbol in Europe. It goes back to 832 with the Battle of East Lothian in Scotland. This was a symbol against the tyranny of the British, and that symbol held out through all this time and now has become the national symbol of Scotland. It's on the Scottish national flag. It is also on the flag of Jamaica. Don't believe me? Go look up the Jamaica national flag. You'll see it. It may not look the same because of the stars in here, but these all came about because of a little event called the Republic of West Florida in 1810, when they first raised the bonnet blue, and the bonnet blue is the first star of the Confederate battle flag, as I've mentioned before. And my uncle's daughter-in-law is black. My cousins are Japanese American. So you people at YouTube can't say that I'm racist. You can go back and look at any of my videos. If you watch the series, and YouTube, you should be watching these videos too. You know, I talk about preserving great music, preserving history, culture, art, bringing to light music by lesser-known composers, whether they're black, white, women, you name it, male, female, I don't care. You got great music, great art, bring it to the table. Let's hear it. Let's see it. Let's not end up like Shostakovich in Russia. Let's not end up like the authors and poets in Cuba. As I've said many, many, many times before, but I have to repeat this because apparently the message isn't getting out there, or it's getting out there to very few people. So thank you for being with me. I'll say it one last time. If you enjoyed the video, please click that like button, subscribe, hit me up on Instagram at hashtag JasonComposes, leave comments below, and then you can reach me at Twitter, Voice of the Composer Twitter. So have a great Friday, everybody. Have a good weekend. I'll catch you next time. Stay safe, everybody, and God bless this great country.